We don't talk about this enough, but I'll be the one to tell you that it takes courage to stop holding on, to let that door close, to have courage to not force that fit, to actually pivot. And you need courage because it's not about you being lost, it's about you finally moving towards something that feels right. And most people won't say this out loud, but you don't know anyone an explanation for the change. You are not required to make it neat and fit in someone else's box. You're not required to make it convenient. Or how about this? It doesn't even have to be understandable to them because the pivot isn't, it's for you. It's not for them. Welcome back, guys, to the Emmanuel Dr. EG3 podcast. As you know, I'm Emmanuel George, but around here, most folks just call me Dr. EG3. This is a place where we unpack growth, clarity, your calling, the courage to pivot into your next season. And even if that means most likely leaving something familiar behind. Before we dive in deeper, though, I want to make sure that we're on the same page and I want to define what I mean when I say pivot. A pivot isn't just about a change of direction, it's a shift in alignment. It's that moment when you stop forcing yourself to keep walking down that road just because you started it. Now, I want to make sure we're clear. It's not quitting, it's not running, it's just recognizing when your values, your vision, or even your identity have maybe outgrown your current assignment. And the pivot is about the courage to choose what's next, even when it doesn't make sense to other people. Heck, may not even make sense to you in the moment. But I want to show you some examples of what pivoting looks like when it's done with purpose. Now, you guys know about Meghan Markle, who found herself in a whirlwind and stepped away from the royal family. And everyone expected that she was going to launch a fashion empire or something after she left. Well, what she did was she created a lifestyle brand, one that was rooted in home and cooking and making jams. And how about this? The things that just brought her peace. And it wasn't because it was flashy, it was more so because it was hers and she wanted to create her own identity. You guys may know of the actress, global performer, the singer, Teyana Taylor. She just recently enrolled in culinary school. And it wasn't about her wanting to escape Hollywood. It was about her pursuing a dream that said she always wanted, that she carried since childhood. And it for her is more of a pivot towards peace. I also think about Ryan Clark. He's one of my favorite sports analysts. He went from Pro Bowl safety to being one of the most thoughtful voices in sports and in current culture. He created a podcast, The Pivot, that isn't just about conversations. It's about transformations for fellow athletes and individuals who are beyond the stripes, beyond the court that they may play on. Maybe you guys have heard of this semi-famous guy. His name is Michael Jordan. There's a couple of generations that only know him for his shoes, not his stats. Maybe you guys have heard of Shaquille O'Neal. They know this guy from TNT, the general commercials, or business ownership, not for what he did on the court and the dominant force he was, for the Lakers or the Magic. And these aren't just career collapses. These are individuals who allowed their identity to evolve. These are aligned pivots into what they wanted to accomplish. And I want to make sure that we talk about why your pivot matters too. And the first thing I want you guys to realize and recognize and really hone in on is number one, the pivot is for you, not for other people. And I think this is one of the hardest things about the pivot. It's not the change that's occurring, it's about the commentary that comes with it. People will question it. And guess what? People will question it even with good intentions. They'll say stuff sometimes like, but you were so good at that other thing. Why are you going to make this change? Did something happen? You really think now is the right time with this economy? And if you're not grounded in your own truth, secure and sure in who you are, you may actually start to believe those voices. You believe that you need some other person's permission to make a change that's best for you, your life, your family, your career. But guess what? You don't need their permission. The pivot was never theirs to understand. It was yours alone, and your decision to make. Like Meghan Markle. After leaving royal life, the world expected her to go into the obvious stuff: fashion, beauty, glamour. But what did she do? She launched as ever. A lifestyle brand that's rooted in home cooking and things that brought her peace. She didn't build what would impress the most people. She built something that aligned with her interest. She was quoted as telling the press, "I knew people would be confused, but I didn't create this to make sense to them. I created this to make sense to me." That's powerful. That's what it means to pivot for peace and not for performance. So let me ask you this. If you weren't trying to impress anyone, what would be your next move? What would you choose? What would you pivot towards? Number two, as you guys know, I'm always thinking about like longer term because sometimes we can be so rooted in the now. It affects our thoughts, it affects our feelings. But number two, I want you guys to realize your legacy is layered. It's not about this straight singular line. I know that we ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And we kind of set them on this path of this one way to get here. But when you look at most famous or successful people, there were a lot of winds and turns and pivots along the way. So legacy is not a straight line. It's not a one lane road that goes on forever. It's layered. And the sooner we stop chasing consistency for the sake of image, the sooner we can embrace freedom of reinvention. I think about, we ask young people to decide who do they want to be when they grow up. And we start these conversations when they're 5, 6, 7, years old. We ask kids to decide in ninth grade, who do they want to be? And they have to get a track. And then you go to college and you have to select a major. At 18 years old is a tough time when your prefrontal cortex is still building and growing and developing and you don't quite know who you are. And it can be difficult sometimes to switch that major. But I think about Shaquille O'Neal, for example. He's a Hall of Famer. He was known as a 4-time NBA champ. But if you only knew him from the court, you're missing out on the big picture of how he has evolved and changed. Those of you know Shaq, and again, there's generations just who only know him as being a sports analyst on TNT. Might know him from being a DJ, a rapper, a franchise owner, a pitchman for multiple brands, a speaker, philanthropist. He's not just stuck in his prime anymore on the court. He's multiplied into multiple types of ventures. And I guess that same thing could be said for Michael Jordan. A lot of kids today, young people today, only know him from his shoe brand. They don't really know him or have ever seen him on the court or paid attention to his stats. And I know, again, there's going to be a huge debate about the GOAT. But at the end of the day, most folks have never seen it. And these individuals, their legacies didn't stop when they stopped playing. They just expanded it. I think about Ryan Clark. He didn't just try to be the next football analyst. He built something new with his podcast. This is a space, again, if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a space where culture, vulnerability, and truth all intersect. Allow individuals who may be only known for one thing to come speak their truth. And that's part of his legacy now. I remember him saying he was being interviewed and he said, they told me once to just go into media, but he wanted to feel something that was real and different. And he wanted to give players an opportunity to be whole, not just about the highlights of their playing career. So, what about you? What if your pivot isn't erasing everything that came before, it's just expanding it? And if you had that understanding, what would you do differently? And the last point, number three, that I want to make with you guys around this pivot is when you trust, you don't have to rush. I know that sometimes we feel very emotional in the moment and it feels like that we're panicked. But you know what panic does? It makes you reach, it makes you extend, it makes you rush, and it convinces you that something has to happen immediately. It makes you feel as though you're behind or you're failing. But you know what trust does? Trust allows you to breathe. Trust allows you to move a little slower, observe. It gives you the freedom to let things unfold rather than forcing things open. Teyana Taylor mentioned on Instagram that she was going to go to culinary school. She's not quitting Hollywood. She's not quitting being in movies or her performing career. She's not burning bridges. She's just expanding it. She said, I've always dreamed of doing this. This is a reinvention. It's not a reinvention, it's a return. Excuse me, that's what she said. It's a dream. There's something she always dreamed of, and that isn't a reinvention. It's just a return to what she always wanted. She didn't rush. She trusted her time, and she has a career, she has kids. She just trusted the time of having the opportunity to do something that she's always wanted to do. Meghan Markle waited for years before launching her brand. Michael Jordan built a business infrastructure over decades. Trust removes the need for speed. And I believe it. Because when you actually trust what's next for you, you stop trying to sprint and rush to prove it to everyone. You don't need the next gig right away. You don't need to post your plan tomorrow on the interwebs. You don't need to have every step mapped out. You recognize that you learn and grow in the momentum to just take the step and move forward. You just need just enough clarity to take the next right step. Because when you trust the pivot, you don't panic when you might have to pause. You realize that it's all a part of kind of the plan to get there. And I've seen all of these things play out again and again in my life, in the people that I'm connected to, and the leaders that I admire. The doors that close, I believe, aren't setbacks. I believe when a door closes, it's a sign, it's an invitation to start that sacred pivot that you're there, that you have in front of you. The question isn't about will the next door open? I think the bigger question is, will you trust yourself enough to stop forcing the old ones to stay open? I was working with one pharmacist and they were hoping and praying to have them transition to a new career path, a new job that they wanted. And I remember when they finally got the job that they were looking for, they kept telling me that, hey, I'm going to just stay part-time at the old place. And I was baffled. Wait, you spent all of this time not appreciating how you were being treated. You didn't like the culture. You wanted to go to something else. Why would you keep that door open? I remember them saying, well, I just want to have my options open. And I guess I look at things a little different because I think, is it really an option if you don't want it? Why keep a door open that you don't want to go back through? But I recognize that it was about the unknown of the pivot, the unknown of that new position and that new role with that new company. Just because something's familiar doesn't mean it's good for you. So, this is your challenge this week. I want you to ask yourself, what's a door that I'm still holding open, even though it's already closed? Where am I gripping instead of growing? Holding on to the thing that, hey, you still holding on to it, but it definitely let you go. Where have I stayed for comfort when the calling already moved on? Then I want you to ask yourself, as you get through those questions, I want you to ask yourself this: what would trusting the pivot look like for me right now? Not in 6 months, not at the perfect time, not when I have all of these things settled. Right now. What would trusting the pivot look like for you right now? So, if this hits home, as you guys know, somewhere on this page, subscribe, follow, just so that you could always stay connected. If it resonates, and share it. Send it to somebody that you think this will work with, someone who's been questioning the pivot, someone who's been stuck between peace and performance. And if you're in that season, you guys know I'm always here to help. You could check out my website, emmanuelgeorge.com, grab a workbook, or maybe my book, No Fear in Asking. Um, because you don't have to figure this out by yourself. I just always want you to know that I love you much.